Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Chris Hensing. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, a supervised drug consumption site has been open for 6 months in Windsor, but its future is unclear as a province-wide review continues. And a look at how the youngest among us are marking Remembrance Day. We show you the school services ahead of tomorrow's ceremonies. And with hawks and raptors flying high above, we look into why people are tracking these birds in Essex County. But we begin tonight with a look at how the cyber attack on hospitals in our area is affecting patients. Some are being sent for care in cities hours away, as we hear it could take a month or longer to restore systems. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa takes a closer look.
After months of chemotherapy for a rare type of Hodgkin's lymphoma, Cale McMurn was about to start radiation when he was told his care was moving hours away.
I'm basically leaving everything behind to go up to London for the treatment. And
McMurn is not alone. A ransomware attack on October 23rd hit all 5 hospitals in southwestern Ontario. Unable to access patient records and use some medical tools, they've been forced to cancel procedures and tests, putting patient care on hold.
In medicine and in specifically cancer treatment, early detection, early treatment is key.
The number of patients hasn't been made public, but some are now going to this Toronto hospital for radiation treatment.
We prefer patients not to travel. If they have cancer, they're having side effects from treatment, it would be better to be closer to home.
Bluewater Health Hospital in Sarnia is the most impacted. It says all of its 267,000 patients dating back to 1992 have had highly sensitive healthcare information stolen.
We are doing our best also to restore our computer and digital systems.
Thousands of employee details, including social insurance numbers, have also been taken from hospitals in Chatham-Kent and Windsor. Cybercriminal group Dakeson took responsibility for the attack after the hospitals decided not to pay a ransom.
The first few weeks of trying to recover a healthcare environment from a ransomware attack and making the painful choice not to pay are absolutely hellish.
The hospitals say that they're rebuilding their systems from scratch. That could take until mid-December, and it could be months before they know whose data was taken. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Ontario's Minister of Mental Health and Addictions in Windsor today, celebrating the opening of a youth centre. The minister's visit comes as questions remain about provincial support for a downtown drug consumption facility that is lingering. Dalton Chen has more.
There's still no timeline on Ontario approval of SafePoint, the addictions treatment site in Windsor's core. That's according to the cabinet minister responsible for such issues, who visited Windsor today.
I don't have a specific date, but I'm obviously very anxious to hear what the outcome is going to be. We have concerns when it comes to public safety, and we have to ensure that everything we do is in the best interests of the community at large. The most responsible thing the government can do is have a review that's objective, that will come back and make recommendations that we will implement. Perhaps they were opened a little too quickly without giving enough thought as to location, as to security, as to hours of operation. There's so many aspects of them that we're now questioning.
SafePoint provides a space where users can consume drugs in a supervised environment. The Windsor Essex Health Unit opened SafePoint in April with the support of Health Canada. But provincial support is needed so the site can receive funding. Approval of all such sites in Ontario has been on hold for the past 4 months. The province says a public safety review is necessary after a fatal shooting outside a similar site in Toronto in July. The MPP for Windsor West says the delay is unacceptable.
There are incidents that we see happen on the TTC in Toronto on a daily basis, unfortunate things that happen on the TTC. They don't shut down the entire transit system while they're investigating. There's absolutely no excuse and no reason for the government to withhold the funding.
Tobolo was in Windsor to cut the ribbon on the new permanent home of Windsor's Youth and Wellness Hub. Now located on Eugenie Street West, the expansive multi-room site is meant to provide one-stop, no-waitlist mental health services for young people ages 12 to 25. The province is providing $650,000 in annual operational funding.
It's a 10,000 square foot space that is youth-friendly, youth-informed. We knew even prior to the pandemic that the mental health needs of our youth were increasing and growing.
The Youth and Wellness Hub is open 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday. There's no word from the province about Windsor having a 24/7 mental health crisis center. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
Services will be held across Canada to mark Remembrance Day tomorrow. Kids marking the day with ceremonies in schools across Windsor, Essex today. Here is a scene at Tecumseh Vista this morning.
In Flanders fields, the poppies blow. Between the crosses, row on row. Auprès des croix et dans l'espace, les alouettes devenues là. Scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. À nos parents, à nos amis, c'est nous qui reposons ici, au champ d'honneur, in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we throw. À vous de porter l'oriflamme et de garder au fond de l'âme. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow, in Flanders fields, au champ d'honneur.
It's a time where we get to reflect on the people that fought for us, the people that sacrificed themselves just for our country and help us to where we are today. So it's a sad day, but it's a day we must remember no matter what.
Our Dale Molnar now with the story about a horse an Essex family says is connected to the First World War.
As far as I know, this would be about the area where Kate the warhorse is buried.
Beverly Kelk stands on the spot where she says her grandfather buried a warhorse he was given just after the First World War. She says according to her late Uncle Wallace, her grandfather's 10-year-old son at the time, Kate the warhorse arrived by train one day in Essex.
No farmer wanted her.
She says that's because Kate was acting up. She says Kate was the last horse on a train that was carrying surplus war horses across eastern Canada that were being distributed to farmers.
But my grandfather, who happened to be in town, he was like a horse whisperer. He was very, very good with horses. And so they said, go get Ephraim, Hensman, my grandfather, and he'll know what to do with this horse.
She says her grandfather told Wallace to go get some grain and walk the horse back to the family farm nearby.
And he says, anytime she stops, just give her a handful of grain. So that's how the horse actually got from the train station to the farm here. It's a huge horseshoe.
War horses were used for a variety of tasks, and because of the size of one horseshoe left on Kate, Kelk believes she was a large workhorse.
Motor vehicles were in their infancy in some respects at the start of the war, and they were not equipped to handle the Western Front. They broke down easily, they couldn't be fixed easily, they got stuck in the mud, that sort of thing. Horses, on the other hand, were tried and true. They could pull through the mud, they could work through these conditions.
However, Teresa Iacobelli says there was no official program where ex-war horses were distributed to farmers after the war.
In most cases, it wouldn't have been worth getting the horses back in terms of cost of shipping them overseas again and transport, and many of these horses were in poor condition by the end of the war.
She says most of the horses were sold in Europe after the war. However, war historian and novelist Susan Raby Dunn says Kate may have been on a train load of horses that were sent to Halifax to be shipped to Europe, but that the war ended before that could happen. She says it's possible that the horses were distributed to farmers because there was nowhere else to take them. Kelk says Kate ended up being a good horse for her grandfather. She doesn't know when Kate died, but she says she was buried in the family's field near Essex.
And this one horseshoe was left on her because the vets, when the war was over, could not get it off.
There are no pictures of Kate, but Kelk keeps this horseshoe she got from Wallace as a tangible memory of the war horse that came to Essex County. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Lakeshore.
The bloodshed continued in the Middle East today. The Hamas-run health ministry says Israeli airstrikes hit 3 Gaza hospitals, including 2 where displaced people had taken refuge. Meanwhile, Hamas has continued to fire rockets at Israel. Israel saying that it won't agree to a ceasefire until Hamas releases the 200-plus hostages that it's been holding for a month now. And once again, at the Egyptian border, Canadians are trying to flee Gaza, but are left stranded. Here's CBC's Tom Perry with that story.
People continue to gather on the Gaza side of the Rafah crossing, hoping to get in, including Canadians. Akram al-Sabah's daughter back in Canada has been worried for her father. He traveled all the way from northern Gaza to be in Rafah today.
In Gaza, situation is a very bad situation over there. You can't find food, you can't find bread, you can't find the water. But I say thanks for God. I'm here now in the Rafah border, you know. I feel a little bit better, you know, because soon maybe open the door for us.
The Rafah crossing remained closed today. More than 250 Canadians had their name on a list to get out. At Canada's embassy in Cairo, Canada's ambassador talked about the impact the closure was having on getting Canadians out of Gaza.
It's very difficult. It's one step forward, two steps back. It's a bit, I would say, lost in translation. You know what's happening at the border? Oftentimes it's disagreements between the different parties.
At the embassy, diplomatic staff have been helping Canadians and their families get their paperwork in order and plot their next move. For some, that next step is going to Canada, but others aren't so sure.
We need to take a deep breath. We need to take it slowly before we move back home to Canada. Like, we just need to, you know, we can't be moving from one place to another. So we are just trying to settle down right now, figure out as a family what we're going to do next.
The Canadian Embassy hopes Canadians will start leaving Gaza in greater numbers. So far, just over 100 Canadians have managed to get out, but hundreds more remain trapped. Tom Perry, CBC News, Cairo.
And those Canadians who have made it out face a daunting journey home, many dealing with complicated flight connections. CBC's Kimberly Molina has more on one family's story.
Noor Al-Batniji blows kisses to her father, whose face fills a computer screen in her family's living room in Canada. She smiles, relieved that he's finally safe in Egypt.
I was elated. Like, I can't even imagine what he had gone through for a month.
I feel that I born again. I was really, you feel anytime you can get hit by missiles or...
Hani Al-Batniji has spent much of the past month fleeing for his life. He fled from one home to another with family members, including his brother.
I see the dead every day, every minute, not every day. Imagine when I was in Rafah, we was in a house, 120 people in one room.
I couldn't even ask him if you were safe because I knew the answer was just no, it's not safe.
Yeah, we scared about that, yeah.
I have to pay...
The family, too, often felt helpless on this side of the globe. His kids spent countless hours on the phone with Global Affairs Canada.
And they'd say, we're doing our best. And then I would call again, and they'd add little notes in their notes to tell me, okay, we're updating where your dad has been.
On Tuesday, he was among the first group of Canadians to cross the Rafah border. What came next was anything but simple. The trip includes several flights from Cairo to Casablanca, then Montreal, and finally, the drive to Ottawa.
What's the first thing you guys are going to do when he steps through that door?
Hug him. I'm going to get up and hug him.
Kimberly Molina, CBC News, Ottawa.
Air Canada is vowing a change for the better in its treatment of people with disabilities. A series of incidents has come to light showing flight crews badly prepared. The airline has issued an apology. CBC's Ashley Burke has the story.
Ryan LaChance says he felt dehumanized and humiliated after Air Canada staff dropped him in the aisle.
They treat us like we're cargo, and they just left us off and on the plane the same way they do the luggage.
Now a public apology.
We know that we've let those customers down, and for that we are truly, truly sorry.
Federal ministers summoned the airline to Ottawa after a series of CBC News stories about the treatment of passengers who use wheelchairs.
Not only do airlines, need to be held accountable, they need to a lot better.
A Marketplace hidden camera investigation captured Air Canada workers struggling to get Alessia DiVirgilio on board a plane.
I felt humiliated.
In another story, passenger Rodney Hodgins said he had to crawl down the aisle.
I'm just wondering what you personally think of hearing a story of someone having to drag themselves across an aircraft to get off.
I think my personal view reflects the view of everybody at Air Canada that it's not acceptable.
Air Canada said it's speeding ahead with changes.
We are investing in training for all of our colleagues that are involved with lifting customers into chairs on board aircraft, and also investing in even more equipment.
It also says passengers with accessibility needs will board first, and wheelchairs will be stored in the cabin when possible. Some say they'll believe it when they see it.
When I show up on a plane and I don't have to hold my breath, I'm wondering if I'm going to get dropped or my wheelchair is going to get damaged. I'll feel a lot better.
Disability advocate Mayan Ziv hopes it's the beginning of much more.
I think that Air Canada has violated the trust of disabled passengers, and it's going to take a lot more than promises and statements to prove that they can earn our loyalty as passengers.
Air Canada also says it will now invest in annual training for staff, and if someone's wheelchair or aid is stowed under the plane, it created a tracking system so they can see if it's on board, and if not, they say the plane won't take off. Ministers say they're meeting next month with Air Canada again to see if there's been change. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
We take a live look outside at the new bridge. The new bridge that's getting built there. A little joke for those who have been watching this week. We come back with a live look at the weather forecast next. Nick Sirkovich joins us now for a live Friday night weather forecast. Heading into the weekend here, man, a bit of stability we had, I think, on that chart there. What do we got now?
Yeah, you know what, man, it's not looking too bad. You know, we've seen weekends, of course, as we get into November. It's really that sort of variable season. Looking forward, not much to speak of in terms of weather patterns. I like this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's easy, it's straightforward. Temperatures into the double digits again today, still sitting at 10 degrees right now in the Windsor area. We'll see a little bit of a dip in the temperatures through tonight, next couple of days, and then they pick up again, but not much, if any, actually, to speak of in terms of precipitation. Some cloud cover in place here. Doesn't really show up very well. Relies on light, this particular one, the visible satellite imagery, and of course as the sun sets, we're not seeing very much of it, but there is some cloud cover in place. The rain showers further to the north there. You look at the forecast, cloud cover starts to kind of break up a little bit. Think around the Sarnia, Goderich area, just sort of in the lee of Lake Huron, we're going to see some isolated showers. We have been seeing some of that as well, and this with the northerly wind. And that's just picking up some moisture off of the lake. Doesn't look, though, in terms of the way the winds are, it doesn't look like that's going to hit the Windsor area as we move through the next couple of days. As we move through tomorrow morning, again, on and off cloud cover, so we do have the chance of seeing sort of more cloudier periods, but I think we're going to see some sunshine in there as well tomorrow. It's kind of broken up here. Begins to break up more into Sunday, and then this is by and large high cloud cover. So again, we've got some cloud for the morning and then sort of breaks up into the afternoon. So a mix of sun and cloud, if you will, as we head into Sunday, but dry weather in place. And in fact, that's the story heading through the next few days as well. Winds starting to ease off here as well. Tomorrow we're looking at winds in around the 20 kilometer per hour mark and even lighter as we head through the afternoon. So sort of light winds in play there. Temperature wise, heading through the evening hours tonight into the overnight, we're down to around the 0 mark. Now, here's how it's going to sort of play out. Areas that are under cloud cover are generally going to stay a little bit warmer, and that's because the cloud cover tends to sort of insulate things. Areas that happen to see clear breaks, and I think Windsor is going to be one of them, temperatures are going to drop just down below the 0 mark. So if you still happen to have plants outside, you might want to bring them in if they survive this long, just as temperatures kind of dip down below the 0 mark there for tonight. Now, here's a look at your long-range forecast. Heading into Remembrance Day tomorrow, we've got temperatures of 7 degrees, a little bit cooler there, but back to double digits on Sunday with a mix of sun and cloud. Actually could pop a little bit more if we get more in the way of sunshine. 14, though, on Monday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, double digits. I told you right off the bat, this is not a bad forecast for November.
No, not at all. We were watching TV last night, audible gasps because of the snow in Montreal.
Yeah, well, we're not seeing that, thankfully, here.
No, the southern tip has its advantages. Thanks for this, Nick. Have a good weekend, eh?
All right, you too.
Coming up, we told you about Raptors, we told you about Hawks. We are going to check out what people are putting around their little wrists, feet. They're tagging them, they're banding them, and we're going to show you why and how next. Right now, if you head to Holiday Beach Conservation Area and you look up, you'll likely see many hawks and raptors flying overhead. The birds, they're heading to their nesting grounds, and that's something that happens around this time every year. As they flock south in these large numbers, conservation officials, they try to capture, band, and then release as many as they can.
Often we get asked why we band hawks. We like to keep track of the population trends, where they nest in the summertime, where they migrate to and where they spend the winters, what habitat needs to be preserved for their survival. A good example of what can be accomplished by our program is that there's a species of hawk called the Swainson's hawk. It's a broad-winged hawk, something like a redtail, that lives in the prairies. And in 1996, it was discovered that about 20% of the population there did not return. But because we had banded birds, we knew where that particular population wintered, which happened to be the Pampas in Argentina. And through investigation, examination of their wintering grounds, it was discovered, actually we found more than 6,000 dead Swainson's hawks. And it was discovered that the farmers there were using a pesticide to eradicate grasshoppers. And the Swainson's hawks feed largely on grasshoppers during the winter. Estimates were that more than 20,000 Swainson's hawks were killed by those pesticides. So with negotiations with their government, through our government, we managed to get them to stop using that pesticide. And the population has happily returned to what it normally was.
What an impact those little bands can have. Canada will play in the semifinals tomorrow of tennis's Billie Jean King Cup in Spain. The berth in the women's tournament secured yesterday in the team's victory over Poland with a singles match win by Leila Fernandez being the clincher. Canada had not reached the semifinals of the tournament since 1988. 3 little piggies got lost in Texas recently, but managed to escape the clutches of the big bad wolf. They sought shelter under a car in a residential neighborhood.
I look under the car and I see just fur. And to me, it looks like a gray dog.
Not quite the puppy she thought. The owners of the car took a shine to the swine who were caught on a home security camera, and they fed them tortillas. Now, the family members have been looking for the pigs' owners, but so far haven't had any luck. They continue their search, hoping that the pigs will remain pets. They've also contacted a wildlife rescue group that is willing to help if the owners are identified. What a beautiful little pig there. That is it for us here at CBC Windsor News. I'm done for the week. Meg should be back Tuesday. That's when we return. We won't be on air on Monday, but we will be online. Find us cbc.ca/Windsor or on the CBC News app to find the stories that matter most to you. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy your weekend.